All I'm gonna do is share how I've gotten my shoulders as strong as possible based on my methodology of stuff. May not work with you, but it's worked for basically everybody I've ever worked with. Friends of mine that ask for advice. I mean, this stuff's pretty lethal, I'll be honest with you. Regardless, I'm excited that you're here. Stay on, about to show you. I mean, it's game time, babe. What are we doing? Take off the pump cover. We'll see what we got going on. Nothing. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit sad about that. Of course, we have to tuck it in because we're gentlemen. Some stupid rule I came up with. Now I'm held to tucking in an undershirt for the rest of my life. The very first thing I do is strength. Then I focus on hypertrophy, muscle growth type of thing. And then the third part is, which I call third phase, like the last part of my training day, is touch-up work, isolation, and just emptying out the gas tank. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And I do that every single day. So the very first thing I'll start off with is something like this. As you can see down in this basement, you know, the equipment ain't there. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. And I'll tell you what, lifting in really, really weird ways where it's like I have to do this prior to even getting this up, I think has actually allowed me to get a lot stronger than if I didn't have it. It's just a warm-up set. But all I'm doing with my warm-up sets, I know a lot of people struggle, like, how much should I do? Like, this is basically just to get the rhythm in and to make sure you're pressing from a safe place. Hold on. Dude, there is a huge spider web. That is gigantic. It's unacceptable. All right, back to the warm-up. Oh, yeah. Now I'm kind of locked into the movement. So now from here, I feel like any other reps is just taking me out the gas tank, and I don't want that. You know it. When you click onto it, and you're like, oh, this is now moving the way it's supposed to, rack the weight. Without further ado, let's bump up the weights, baby. And what I'll do from here is I just want to get a gauge of where I'm at. So this weight could feel heavier, in which case I might just add a little bit of weight. It could feel stupid light, in which case I put on another plate. But there's only one way to find out, and that's this. All right, it's time. Okay. Yeah, that's butter. Love that sound. What the hell, we don't need that. Take a couple seconds, especially when you're lifting for strength. It doesn't matter if it's shoulders, it doesn't matter if it's back, chest, legs. When you lift for strength, give yourself ample time. You can take your time. I usually take about, honestly, like that's probably the most sitting I'm ever gonna do, is just kind of sitting around waiting till I feel super fresh to then nail down the set. But this is usually my top set. Problem is I don't know how high I can go. So in my head, it's like, well, we'll test it out, and whatever it is, it is. Then I know next time I should have definitely gone heavier on that first set, and now I take notice to it. Like, damn, I should have been better. That's how I think of strength a lot of times. I try to go as heavy as possible on my very, very first set, and I try to hang on. I really do try to hang on to that strength because I'm going as heavy as possible. But I'll notice is, like, I like to fill between 4 to 6 reps with strength movements. So if I get 7, I know that's far too much, and I know then to increase the weight. But if I were to get 3, I'm not really too mad about it because I'm trying to get 4 as much as possible. And your body will adapt. Like, a lot of times when people say, I can't break through this strength plateau, a lot of times it's overshooting. Put 20 more pounds on the bar, obviously have a spotter, but just have him just guide you. He brings it up with you and you focus on the negative. Bring it up, like forced negatives are super, super helpful because your body feels that stimulus and it'll adapt. That's the beauty of the human organism. There's so many creative ways of just getting to that point where it's like, how do I do this? How do I do that? There's 85 ways to get to the same solution. The question is it a way that you can actually sustain? And I think is what most people miss. Just because my process works for me doesn't mean it's gonna work for you necessarily. The only thing is I will say is, like, a lot of the things I've tested out, like, I'm not a genetic freak. So like I had to kind of dive in deep onto this stuff, and it was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? And so you have to get creative with your solutions, but by the time you're done, you have so much in the toolbox that you can just pull out whenever because you have so much information from prior of just trying and failing. And then you succeed on a couple and you're like, oh, this one really moved the needle for me. Anyways, next set. I'm way too light. Way too light, man. Okay. Now that obviously looked very dangerous, but I've been playing around in the basement for quite some time. So I kind of know how to push it and when not to push it. If I needed to, I would have just gone like this, put it in the back, and racked it like a back squat. But if you're not accustomed to doing stuff like that and you have this type of equipment, don't get fancy. It's not worth getting hurt. But as you guys saw, that is way too light. Like, that's a good hypertrophy set or muscle growth set, however you want to word it. But I'm not going for hypertrophy right now, right? I want to go for strength. So I obviously know to bump up the weight. As you guys saw, and this is the key difference maker. Before I put on that other weight, this is the key difference maker. Just because I made the mistake doesn't mean I just now unrack it, because then you're kind of like half in the game, half out. Screw it. You made your decision. You give everything you got to the set. For me, of course, I'd like to push a little bit further, but I also didn't want to risk, messing myself up. Maybe on the next one, I'll do it because now I know how to kind of organize it, throw it back on. So that's it. But that doesn't give you an excuse to completely ditch what you're doing, like trying to end it early. You're just going to mess yourself up. You kind of depleted energy. You could have taken advantage of that set. Screw it. Your body wasn't expecting it. It's more fun that way anyways. And even then, you're building up your endurance work a little bit, like lifting heavier weights for more reps. That's only going to help out your heavy sets. Not something to do all the time, but it's not like a bad accident. Like, oh, man, I messed it up. It's not the end of the world. It's lifting weights. That's the beauty of it. It's simple. You push till it hurts, and then when it hurts, you double down. Seriously. See, this is where you kind of have to get creative, right? Like, I failed, but I'm forced to get stronger in kind of a weird way. With that, re-rack it. Daredevil. That was pretty heavy, especially having to lift behind the neck like that. A lot of people will tell you, dude, you're going to get super injured that way. I really think, I think most people that would try to do that probably would hurt themselves. But I genuinely believe a lot of shoulder injuries isn't as a result of what you are doing. It's what you're not doing. I focus a lot on shoulder health stuff, but in the process, there's ways of bridging the gap where we're increasing the durability of our shoulders, right? Also making them much stronger, putting on more muscle. You can kind of bridge the gap on all these, even mobility stuff, right? Like the ability for me to even hang a front squat. There's a lot of people that have to go like this because they can't have the mobility for that. It's almost forced me in my head, when I think about shoulder training, just in general, right? Not necessarily just muscle growth or not necessarily just strength or not necessarily just mobility and durability stuff. But you have to think of it, if you aren't doing certain movements, you are almost increasing your chances of injury. As crazy as that sounds, I'll do upper back rows, and the whole point of it is of course it's cool to have sick rhomboids and to have a cool looking upper back. That's the side effect. The main reason why I do it is to keep my body so healthy to where when shit like that happens, I'm not worried, oh my God, am I gonna get injured? I don't even think about injuries. This is coming from someone who used to get injured all the time. And I used to do things the safe way. All the time I would do them the safe way. And now I probably lift more dangerous on paper. Never sniffed at an injury. It's because I do things the correct way. Everything has its time, everything has its place, but I don't ignore any of it. I train everything. And when you train everything, you can afford the luxury of possibly hey, that weight didn't come up clean and God, that was bad, and it doesn't matter as much. Crazy as it sounds, oh, wait in 10 years, bro. I've been lifting for over a decade. I've been injured. You kind of understand why you get injured after you get injured a whole hell of a lot. And then it's okay, I need to focus on this stuff. These tiny muscles that we all ignore actually are important. For example, the lower traps. No one focuses on the lower traps, yet they're kind of an integral part of my weekly routine. Like I'll do them twice a week. I always will. I usually do them on shoulder day and back day. Perfect. I like doing them that way. And even then, like on leg day, like I'll do a lot of stuff that requires me to hold the posterior chain, like holding positions that require my lower traps firing off. So it's kind of almost even 3 times a week I'm getting them touched up. Like those little things, you have no idea. It's just like an extra line of defense against shoulder injuries. And that way you can afford the luxury of all this stuff. And then if you have bad mobility, you're kind of like in between stuff. It's fucked, you know? Like if you're not careful, you'll mess yourself up. But you don't have to be necessarily careful. You just, if you're not going to be careful, you have to go 2 ways. You have to be extra careful or you have to do more. And I am always going to opt in for more. Even the way when people talk about cutting and bulking, I don't do cutting and bulking. I think that's bullshit. Even then, I'm never gonna count my calories because there's nuance to this. That's a video for another day. A lot of times people go to restrict themselves versus add on to their plate. And I'm always gonna add on to my plate. So instead of me cutting on the amount of food I'm eating, I'm gonna up my movement. And I know this is gonna sound wild. Your brain will shift. It'll feel a whole of a lot different being inside your head. When you start working it that way, where it's like I'm going to add versus remove, as crazy as it sounds, you almost get overwhelmed with it all, but you turn into a different beast. Mentally, you turn into an absolute animal. And then it gets to a point where you're so used to it that like, if you don't have all this going on, you almost feel like it's like, well, I got to do something. And then you'll fill up your time with something. I would rather that than be like, I can't. It puts you into like, it puts you on your heels versus on your toes, ready to attack. I like it like that. Next set, we'll play around with this weight again. Okay, I wasn't gonna go for another one. There just wasn't a chance. See how smooth that was? Good reps. Could I force another one out? Not a full rep, but I definitely could have gotten a partial, which I am always a huge fan of, but I don't know, I felt like that was good when it came to strength. So obviously I've done 3 sets. First one was 2 high rep. Last 2 have been low rep. What I'll do is, screw it. I'll go 1 more heavy rep. And what I'll do is a drop set all the way down. Because I have to unrack the weights anyways. And I'm already doing this thing that I really don't want to do, but you just know you have to do it, so you don't even think about it. I might as well reap all the benefits I can. And drop sets are stupid efficient. So in my head, part of the reason why I'll just start shedding off weight and just repping at each one major reason. I work out for strength, phase 1. Remember, the very first thing I'm doing is strength work, but it primes me up for the muscle growth portion of my shoulder lift. It almost primes me up and it shifts out my brain where it's like, now we're into hypertrophy work. And now I'm going full into hypertrophy. It's almost like an easy segue out of it by you just simply doing that. Even if you have dumbbells and you're wrapping out, I don't know, 110 dumbbells, let's say. You just drop the weight to like 75, then 55, you know what I mean? And then rep that out. Or obviously like if you're starting at 50, right? Like those are your like 4 to 6 range. In most cases, 35 would be perfect. You know what I mean? And then you can drop it down to 25, which is half. And then just rep that out so you can't go anymore. It's great. This is gonna be my last set. And this is how my last sets always look, regardless of chest day, back day, arm day, leg day, I don't know, whatever day. I always, at the end of my strength, because I'm only doing 1 movement typically for strength, like just focus on strength. I pick one, today is this one. And so right from here, what I'll do is I'll do my drop set all the way down. Boom, we're gonna go right into the muscle growth portion, which will be the next video that comes out. So stay tuned. This one is just strength for shoulders. This applies to anything. You could do 1 arm over the head. Obviously this is pretty light, but just like, even just like you have to bring it up and then you start realizing like, oh, my left shoulder has less mobility than my right one. My right one is easier to shoot up, but my left one is where the restriction is. And then you can start focusing on stuff like that. Dumbbell presses, standing, I would do standing, but obviously if I went standing, I'd be touching the ceiling. I prefer standing over seated. That's just my opinion. I think it's just way more functional. I think it's great for strength, There's a reason why it's a movement not very many people enjoy, because it's very, very difficult. But that's usually a good sign that that's an exercise to work on. All right, last set. Let's get her done. Deep breaths are huge, by the way. Don't sleep on that. That didn't work. Damn it, I did it again. I only got 3 reps on that. But what I'll do is I'll drop, you know what? Screw it. If I only get a couple, who cares? Then I'm primed up for those ones that I really want to get my reps up. You know what I'm saying? I keep doing that. I do love that sound. All right. Boom. Well, that was as lackluster as I expected, so whatever. It is what it is. So now, gets into the fun part. Let's go. Okay. Don't drag your heels. Get after it, dude. In my head, I'll just pick a number. So 15 is the number I thought of. So I'll go 5, 5, and 5 at least. 4. Apologize for the screaming. Do I have the hiccups? Okay, so that was painful. No doubt about that. Oh, you can see it. Sweat's starting to come down. And now we're perfectly primed up for the muscle growth portion of shoulders, which is how I do everything, like I said. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is. But that was the strength exercise I chose. That is essentially how I walk it all the way through with strength to then set myself up for the muscle growth portion of the lift. Wow. I mean, I'm rocked, bro. I'm rocked. Regardless, if you want to see the muscle growth portion after the strength one, I'll drop the YouTube video in a couple days. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys are more interested in like, hey, I want more specifics on strength stuff, let me know. I do believe there's specific movements that are just much more efficient and effective at getting stronger for each day, which is how I like to lift. Because as a natural, it's like, it's a game of recovery, but if you spread out your recovery, you can go that much more intense on shoulders, because I'm not going to touch them, right, for another 6 days directly. Of course, you touch them a little bit on back day, a little bit on chest day, but you get the idea. Appreciate you being here. Man, if you're interested, part 2 will be coming out soon. Talk to you guys later. Uncle Rami out. Peace.